I swear, there's something wrong with archers in games and anime. Emiya Shirou is an archer class servant that loves fighting with swords, and we have Genshin Impact's Childe, number 11 of the Fatui Harbingers, who is also an archer in the game, but loves fighting up close. The two characters are so very similar to each other, fighting with dual blades and combining archery mid-combat, along with other tools within their arsenal. What's up everyone, this is Kay, and the matchup I've always wanted to talk about, Archer versus Tartaglia. I'll break down their powers, strengths, and weaknesses to see who will win in a battle. So starting off with Archer, I'm going to talk about him in Fate Stay Night, not Fate Extra or the Moon Cell variation, since servants in that game seems a bit too OP. Archer often fights with his twin blades Kancho and Bakia. When wielded together, he gets an increase in magical and physical resistance. Because Emiya specializes in projection magic, he can create almost an infinite amount of swords if he has enough mana. During his fight against Ku, he was disarmed multiple times, but had the ability to create the swords instantly. This means Archer will always have a weapon to fight with, fitting for someone who creates swords. This also opens up for different types of attacks, such as throwing the weapons. Since he can create new ones, Archer will still be armed, making his fighting style difficult to predict. One of his deadliest techniques is called the triple linked craned wings. Archer essentially strikes multiple times consecutively by throwing multiple swords in all directions, making it difficult to block since it's an omnidirectional attack. He then ends it by slashing the enemy up close. This was an attack that even took one of Heracles' life during the Fate route. He can even further reinforce his swords, known as Overedge, extending the length and strength of his swords. Thankfully, his archer class actually means something. Despite fighting in close quarters, Emiya is a skilled bowman, being able to instantly switch to range combat instantly. He has an ability known as Hawkeye, which allows him to basically see things from a far distance. It's great for locating targets and for sniping enemies, even if they're moving at high speeds. What's insane is that Archer can use his broken phantasms at a sniping distance as well. One of his strongest attacks is creating Calibre 2, which was originally a sword used by Fergus, but for Emiya, he transforms it into an arrow. This creates a powerful explosion upon impact and is capable of killing Heracles at least once if the attack hits directly. Moving on, Archer has one of the most powerful defense ability called Ro Ias. This is a projected shield that has 7 layers. It's also the shield Ajax used against Hector in the Trojan War. This shield is capable of blocking powerful noble phantasms such as Ku's Gay Bulk, which is an amazing feat, but Archer was still injured in the process. One major downside to using this ability is that the projection requires twice even triple the amount of magical energy in order to create it, so this definitely isn't a skill Archer can constantly spam. So I mentioned previously that Archer has projection magic, being able to create his 2 swords, but he can also copy his opponent's weapons, even using previous ones he created in the past. What makes Emiya quite powerful is that all he has to do is look at his sword or weapon, and then he can replicate it. Now, there are some limitations, such as the weapons are usually 1 rank lower than the original, meaning it's not as strong. He also can't create divine constructs like Aya or Vasavi Shakti. Archer also needs to see a weapon and its construction in order to create it, so he can't just forge weapons he hasn't seen. Emiya's most powerful ability is Unlimited Blade Works. This is a reality marble or a physical manifestation of Archer's inner world. For Genshin fans, think of it like the Raiden Shogun's plane of Euthymia. In this world exists all the weapons Emiya has ever created, where he can use them instantly compared to needing to project them when he's outside the reality marble, which takes time. Some known weapons Emiya has within his Unlimited Blade Works are Caliburn, Gaybog, Herx, and Nero's Sword, Rule Breaker, and a bunch more. He can also fire swords in a similar way Gilgamesh does with his Gates of Babylon. The number of weapons being shot at enemies can overwhelm them without a proper defense. Now, the biggest drawback for using Unlimited Blade Works is mana consumption. A character that can create any weapons he sees and stores them for future use sounds broken, right? But the main issue, like I mentioned before, is mana consumption. Outside the Unlimited Blade Works, he has to use mana to create each weapon, but within the Reality Marble, well, first off, he has to use a lot of mana to create the world in the first place, but it will constantly drain him of his energy, so he can't keep it forever. Despite this, however, Emiya has a shit ton of reserve mana, being able to activate his Noble Phantasm twice without a master. With a master, his mana pool is even higher, but it isn't infinite, so we can't spam that shit forever. On a side note, Archer can technically replicate Excalibur to a degree, but it'll obviously be flawed and inferior to Saber's original sword. Essentially, he can make a similar copy, but not exact. Also, creating such a holy weapon would kill him, so it's not a viable option, unless we're talking about the Fate Extra or Moonverse Archer, which he could just spam that for days, but we're talking about the Fate Stay Night Emiya Archer. Finally, in order to use Unlimited Blade Works, Archer needs to say those famous lines we love to hear. If he can't finish his chant or gets interrupted in battle, then he can't activate it, which is a huge weakness that can be exploited. Overall, Archer is extremely versatile, specializing in range and close combat. He has a lot of tools he can use, but there are some limitations. Though not the most powerful servant, Emiya is certainly a strong one because of his adaptability. Moving on to Tartaglia, he is number 11 of the Fatui Harbingers, which are considered extremely powerful characters in Genshin Impact's lore. Childe specializes in multiple martial arts and weapons, but he sucks with the bow, which is why the cocky bastard's using it. In terms of his archery skills, he usually infuses it with hydro and launches water attacks at enemies. This shows that he's capable of incorporating ranged bow attacks with his fighting style, sort of like Emiya. His preferred form of fighting is up close with his twin hydro blades and spear. This is known as Foul Legacy Raging Tide, which allows him to manifest hydro weapons. Again, just like Emiya, Childe will never run out of weapons when disarmed because he can just create them. Childe can switch between his bow, swords, and spears easily in combat. One of his signature abilities is Havoc Obliteration. When using a bow, Childe uses Flash of Havoc, which causes an explosion of water. With his spear, he'll use Light of Obliteration, which is a powerful slash. He can also create an elemental barrier that surrounds his body and blocks all incoming attacks. This is a neat defensive technique, but it isn't as powerful, let's say, to Zhongli's Jade Shield, for example, and Childe's shield can be easily shattered. As a Hydro Vision user, majority of his attacks will be water-based, but he has an Electro Delusion. Now, delusions are more powerful than visions, but it comes at a cost of taking away the user's life energy. In this form, Childe has access to lightning-based attacks, being able to move at extremely high speeds. He mainly focuses on melee strikes, dropping his range attacks. This can be seen as Childe being serious, because him using his bow is just him having fun. Foul Legacy Devouring Deep is Tartaglia's trump card. He is currently the only character as of right now in Genshin Impact who has this transformation because he learned it during his training with the Abyss. It transforms him physically and creates a physical lance. In this form, he becomes extremely powerful, utilizing both Hydro and Electro attacks. He has the power to summon Electro swords and drops them on enemies. With such an ability, he can most certainly use it to shoot at targets from a distance similar to Emiya. Childe can also teleport with ease. Combined with his speed, he's extremely deadly up close. Childe has 3 ultimate attacks, basically his most powerful finishers. Dark Leap is a plunging attack where he charges up, then leaps into the air and strikes down on the target. This move cannot be dodged as it's too fast, and upon landing, the area is blasted with lightning. Only way to survive this is to block. His second ultima is Celestial Voyager, where Childe summons a Hydro freaking whale that crashes down and crushes enemies. It's also a flashy attack, so you gotta give credit to Childe for having such an awesome looking ability. His final ultima is God Arrows, where he shoots a Hydro arrow into the air and it rains down, hitting enemies in a large area. This is equivalent to Atalante's Noble Phantasm in Fate Apocrypha. It's a powerful ability and I would say his strongest. This move cannot be avoided as well because the amount of area it covers is too great, so like many of his attacks, it can only be blocked. The biggest drawback, going back to Childe's Foul Legacy transformation, is that it's short term. Using his Foul Legacy transformation puts insane stress on his body. It could even kill him if he uses it too long. The strain is so severe that he hasn't fully recovered in several days after fighting against the Traveler in the Golden House, so it's safe to say if he cannot win with this move, Childe loses. So now that we've broken down the character's abilities, who would win in a battle? They're almost evenly matched in terms of combat abilities. First off, I have to mention Archer can snipe the shit out of Childe from a distance. Emiya can easily shoot a cattle bulk and kill Childe. I'm talking miles and miles away. Remember, this can kill Hercules when hit directly, and Childe isn't built like Herc, so he's not surviving. It's unfair to start the battle from a distance. But we have to keep it fair, face to face as all fair battles should be. But Archer is far superior than Childe in long to mid range. Both fighters will usually use their twin swords first and engage in close quarter combat. This is where it gets interesting because I personally think Childe is stronger than Emiya up close. The combination between his speed, his swords, and his spear, and using 2 different elemental attacks is more powerful than Emiya's swordsmanship. Most of Emiya's signature attacks are ranged, such as summoning and launching swords, his triple crane attack, and his bow techniques. Speaking about his triple crane, it's a strong attack that prevents an opponent from blocking it due to its all-directional attack. But Childe has the lightning speed to dodge it. Reason why it worked on Herc is because he was stuck or slowed down. But this doesn't mean Childe will automatically win because he's better in close combat. Archer fought the likes of Ku, even Assassin Kojiro, who are both superior than him in close quarters, yet he still was able to keep up. He can't win, but he kept up. The same thing can be said when compared to a fight with Childe. Emiya can't win against Tartaglia in a sword fight, but he can utilize range attacks. Given enough space, Archer can shoot a catapult like he did with Medea, and that could prove fatal for Childe. But easier said than done because Medea is a ranged caster, while Childe can rush attack Emiya like Ku did. So this is quite an even battle. Childe is better at close quarters, but Emiya can keep up. Emiya has superior mid-range abilities, giving him a slight advantage over Childe, but Childe can rush attack him. Neither has the ability to outright kill one another, so it all depends on their trump cards. Unlimited Blade Works store thousands of weapons. A lot are Noble Phantasms, only a rank lower than the originals, which is still pretty damn powerful. It's basically a mini Gates of Babylon. This means Archer has multiple weapons he can use individually against Childe. Most notably, he can use it to spam swords at his enemy. Keep in mind, he has instant access to these weapons within the Reality Marble. The rates he can use them or shoot them is slightly faster than Gil's Gates of Babylon. This is because Gates of Babylon needs to go through a portal, while Swords in Unlimited Blade Works is already out. If Archer can use Unlimited Blade Works, then he can and will most likely overwhelm Childe, but only if he can use it. Remember, he has to recite the full incantation for his Reality Marble, which Childe can exploit. Childe's Foul Legacy gives him a tremendous power and speed boost. Though the ability is short term, he can instantly transform in a blink of an eye and destroy 4 Ruin Guards in less than 10 seconds, and this is also when he's still weakened after his fights with the Traveler, so he can certainly use it for a longer time period at full strength. Childe can overwhelm Archer in a similar way Ku did during their second fight, and in that fight, Ku was kicking Emiya's ass and honestly could have killed him without Gay Bolg, but he wanted to be flashy. Now, I'm not saying Childe is stronger than or equal to Lancer. Ku will wreck his ass, but with Foul Legacy, I do believe his speed and strength matches Ku temporarily. And that is the key word that will determine the battle's outcome. The Foul Legacy transformation drains Childe's strength way too fast. During his fights against the Traveler, after transforming, we can assume the battle lasted a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes or so. I know I'm just making some random numbers up, but it's reasonable, and the fight definitely wasn't a long battle in the story. One of the reasons why I believe the Traveler won that battle is because Childe hit his time limit after transforming. Now, there's no doubt the Traveler is stronger than Childe, but if you rewatch the ending battle, Paimon stated Childe is back to normal, meaning he overused his Foul Legacy, which he actually does say. In a battle with Emiya, Archer can stall time after Childe uses his Foul Legacy transformation. One of Emiya's ability is Mind's Eye, which actually allows him to predict and react to enemies far faster than him. It's been said that during his fight against Ku at the church, Archer couldn't even see Lancer's attacks, but because of Mind's Eye, he was able to block attacks that seemed invisible. So there's no doubt that Emiya can stall temporarily till Childe's Foul Legacy runs out. Now, I do believe if Childe can use his transformation for a very long time, then he can win against Archer. This is because Archer's ability to predict and react to attacks doesn't mean he can't be overwhelmed. Again, going back to Ku's fight where clearly Ku was kicking his ass. Though Childe is very similar to Archer, he actually fights like Saber or Lancer when serious. So if he can sustain that Foul Legacy transformation, he can overwhelm and beat Archer. But let's talk about his 3 Ultimas. Childe's most powerful attacks, whether it be God Arrows, Dark Leap, or the Damn Whale, despite not being dodgeable, Archer can use Ro Ayas to block them. To put into perspective in terms of speed, Archer was able to summon the shield the moment Ku used his Noble Phantasm, actually after he threw it, and Childe's Ultimas do require a few seconds to charge up. None of the Ultimas are powerful enough compared to Gay Bolg, for example. It can possibly shatter a few layers of the shield, but not enough to kill Archer. The biggest advantage Emiya has is that the Limited Blade Works incantation can be said even while moving. This means Archer can fight Tartaglia while reciting the words. The only way Childe can prevent this is to overpower Archer, making it difficult for Emiya to say the words, but that again would require Foul Legacy, and like I mentioned before, has a very short time limit. Archer's extreme adaptability and versatility is what will win this fight. If there's any doubts to his abilities, keep in mind Archer killed Heracles 6 times before dying. Killing Herc one time is difficult because only high-ranking weapons or attacks can work. Killing him a second time is even tougher because Herc cannot be killed the same way. Gilgamesh was able to easily do this because the weapons he fired from the Gates of Babylon was a different noble phantasm each time. But this means Emiya was able to use 6 different powerful attacks to kill Herc. And Herc is one of the strongest close-quarter fighters in Fate's Stay Night, being able to beat Saber up close. So if Emiya can find ways to kill a raging Hulk monster with 12 freaking lives, then he can certainly stall Childe till the Foul Legacy runs out. If Childe doesn't use his transformation, then Archer can eventually use Unlimited Blade Works because Tartaglia cannot create enough pressure without Foul Legacy. On another note, if Archer can generate distance in their fights, Emiya can use his arrow attacks. Childe may have an elemental shield that can block some projectiles, but definitely it cannot block a broken phantasm like Cattle Bulb. There is one thing I do want to address. For those who say I'm being unfair because I put an energy time limit on Childe and not on Archer, well, Archer is the guy who fought Ku, used Ro Ayas, surprise attack and killed Medea, showed off his Unlimited Blade Works just because he can, fought Shirou and used Unlimited Blade Works again in less than a day, took lethal shots from Gilgamesh's GOB, and was still alive enough to revenge shot Gil, all without a proper master to give mana. Compared to Childe, who was practically dead after using Foul Legacy a second time for only 10 seconds after days of recovering. So yeah, their stamina aren't the same. Though evenly matched, Archer is far more versatile than Childe, which allows him to win most of the time. But like I said, if Childe can use his Foul Legacy transformation for long periods, then his speed, his power, and attacks will beat Archer. For one thing, Childe in that form can teleport, giving no room for Archer to breathe. And the crazy thing is, Tartaglia is still a growing warrior while Archer is at his peak. Given time, if Childe masters his abilities, he can win. Archer doesn't have a hard counter to the transformation, aside from stalling and possibly Unlimited Blade Works if he can use it. But if that one weakness were to be removed completely, Archer will have difficulty winning because the power boost Childe receives is just too great. But because that is currently a weakness, Archer Emiya is the victor. So this was more of an even matchup compared to my other versus battle, which was Gilgamesh versus Zhongli or Morax, which was so freaking one-sided, it wasn't even funny. Actually, it was kind of funny. But if you haven't seen that video yet, feel free to check that out. You'll see the link on the screen. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for future Genshin Impact and FGO videos. I may make more of these versus battle. It's still an experiment for me, but we'll see. Again, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.